You hit send. Not a big message, just confirming plans. And before your thumb is even off the screen, you are already rereading it, not skimming. Actually rereading, the way you'd check someone else's work before handing it in. Did that sound cold? Should there have been an exclamation mark? You didn't use one. Now you're wondering if that reads as flat or annoyed. Nobody asked you any of this. You wrote a completely ordinary sentence to someone who already likes you and somehow turned it into a small trial where you're both the defendant and the jury. Here's what should tell you something's off. You don't do this after talking out loud. A slightly awkward exchange in person. You forget in 10 minutes. Text the exact same sentence, and it sits in your head all afternoon. Same words, same person. Completely different aftermath. Most people call this overthinking, and sure, technically, that's accurate. But it doesn't explain anything. Overthinking is the symptom. The easy explanation online is that you're anxious, or you care too much what people think. But that falls apart the second you notice how selective it is. You don't reread a grocery list 5 times looking for hidden meaning. You reread the message to the one person whose reaction actually matters. This isn't random. It's targeted. Here's what's actually happening. And it has less to do with you, and more with a gap texting creates by design. Face-to-face, your brain isn't just processing words. It's reading tone, pace, the half-second of hesitation before someone answers. All of that fills in meaning automatically. Text strips that away and leaves plain words on a screen, and your brain does not do well with an incomplete picture. So it fills the gap itself, and it rarely reaches for the neutral explanation first. It reaches for the worst one available. There's research on exactly this. Psychologist Justin Kruger and colleagues studied how confident people are that they've correctly conveyed tone in text, and how confident they are reading someone else's. Both sides consistently overestimate how clearly they've come across. You are not uniquely bad at this. Nobody's particularly good at it. Text was never built to carry tone, and everyone quietly acts like it can. Which still doesn't explain why some people reread a sent message 4 times, and others never think about it again. That part isn't about texting. That part is older. If you grew up somewhere the way you said something got noticed as much as what you said, you learned early that language wasn't just information, it was a risk to manage. Maybe a parent had a short fuse and you got good fast at reading which version of a sentence would land safely. Maybe nobody ever raised their voice, but you still picked up that too much enthusiasm read as too much, and too much quiet read as sulking, with one narrow lane in between, where you were allowed to just talk without anyone reacting to how you said it. Kids in that environment don't grow up trusting that words land the way they're meant. They grow up auditing them first. And texting, stripped of every cue that used to help you gauge the room, hands that old habit exactly the kind of blank space it was built to fill. There's research on why ambiguity specifically is the trigger, not the content. Psychologists studying intolerance of uncertainty have found unresolved, ambiguous situations often provoke more anxiety than situations with a clearly bad outcome. A text that says something clearly negative at least gives you information. A flat, ambiguous one gives you nothing, and the brain treats that empty space as more threatening than an actual answer would be. Because even a bad answer ends the guessing. There's also a finding from research on social anxiety and text interpretation. People who score higher on social anxiety measures don't just feel worse reading ambiguous texts. They interpret the exact same message more negatively by default. The message hasn't changed. The lens reading it has. Put that together. A format that removes tone entirely. A nervous system trained early to treat tone as something worth managing carefully. And an uncertainty response that fills every gap with the worst version of events. Rereading your own message isn't vanity, and it isn't the insecurity people throw around carelessly online. It's an old system running quality control on a format that was never built to be controlled that precisely. Watch where this actually shows up, because it isn't even across your contacts. You'll fire off a message to a coworker you barely know without a second thought. Send that same energy to someone you actually care about, and suddenly you're rereading it 3 times before your thumb leaves the screen. Low stakes, no audit. High stakes, full audit, every time. There's a specific move worth naming because most people watching do it without noticing, sending a message and immediately following it with an unrequested correction. That came out wrong, I meant. Sorry, that was probably confusing. You're not clarifying anything. You're pre-managing a reaction that hasn't happened yet. Here's the detail that gets missed entirely. The other person almost never reread it. They read it once, understood roughly what you meant, and went back to their day. Meanwhile, you've spent 20 minutes building an emotional case file around a sentence they've already forgotten. You're not managing their reaction. You're managing an imagined one, running on rules that made sense once, in a different room with a different person, a long time ago. None of this means you're bad at communicating. If anything, you're paying more attention to how you land with people than most people bother to. The care got assigned to the wrong job. Auditing your own words instead of trusting a normal sentence is allowed to just be normal. Next time your thumb hovers after you've already sent something, notice the urge instead of following it. Don't reread. Just let the message sit there unedited in your head, the same way it's sitting unedited on their screen. Not fixing the sentence, just letting it exist without a second trial. If you've caught yourself doing this, drop a one-word comment below. And if you want more of this, subscribe. There's more coming.